Nehemiah Chapter 7. Now it came to pass when the wall was completed, and I had set up the doors, and the gatekeepers, singers, and Levites had been appointed, that I entrusted my brother Hanani and Hananiah, the leader of the fortress, with the oversight of Jerusalem, for he was a faithful man who revered God more than many. And I said to them, Do not let the gates of Jerusalem be opened until the sun is hot. While they are still standing guard, let them shut the doors and bar them. Appoint watchers from the inhabitants of Jerusalem, each in his watch, and each to be opposite his house. Now the city was spacious and large, but the people in it were few, and the houses had not been rebuilt. Then my God put it into my heart to gather the nobles, the rulers, and the people, that they might be registered by genealogy. And I found a register of the genealogy of those who had come up in the first return, and I found written in it, These are the people of the province who came up from the captivity, of those who had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon had carried away, and who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, every one to his city. Those who came with Zerubbabel were Jeshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Raamiah, Nahamani, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispereth, Bigvai, Nehemiah, and Baanah. The number of the men of the people of Israel. The descendants of Parash, 2,172. The descendants of Shephatiah, 372. The descendants of Era, 652. The descendants of Pahath-Moab, of the descendants of Jeshua and Joab, 2,818. The descendants of Elam, 1,254. The descendants of Zattu, 845. The descendants of Zakkai, 760. The descendants of Binnui, 648. The descendants of Bigvai, 628. The descendants of Azgad, 2,322. The descendants of Adonikam, 667. The descendants of Bigvai, 2,067. The descendants of Adin, 655. The descendants of Ater of Hezekiah, 98. The descendants of Hazhum, 328. The descendants of Bazai, 324. The descendants of Hariph, 112. The descendants of Gibeon, 95. The people of Bethlehem and Netophah, 188. The people of Anathoth, 128. The people of Beth Azmaveth, 42. The people of Kirjath Jearim, Kephirah, and Beeroth, 743. The people of Ramah and Geba, 621. The people of Michmas, 122. The people of Bethel and Ai, 123. The people of the other Nebo, 52. The people of the other Elam, 1,254. The people of Haram, 320. The people of Jericho, 345. The people of Lod, Hadid, and Ono, 721. The people of Sina, 3,930. The priests, the descendants of Jediah, of the house of Jeshua, 973. The descendants of Immer, 1,052. The descendants of Pashur, 1,247. The descendants of Haram, 1,017. The Levites, the descendants of Jeshua and Kadmiel, of the descendants of Hodaviah, 74. The singers, the descendants of Asaph, 148. The gatekeepers, the descendants of Shallum, the descendants of Ater, the descendants of Talmon, the descendants of Akub, the descendants of Hadadah, the descendants of Shobai, 138. The Nethanim, the descendants of Ziha, the descendants of Hasupha, the descendants of Tabbath. The descendants of Kuras, the descendants of Sia, the descendants of Paddan. The descendants of Labana, the descendants of Hagaba, the descendants of Shalmai. The descendants of Hanan, the descendants of Giddel, the descendants of Gahar. The descendants of Rhea, the descendants of Rezin, the descendants of Nekoda. The descendants of Gazam, the descendants of Uzzah, the descendants of Paseah. The descendants of Bisai, the descendants of Munim, the descendants of Nephushim, the descendants of Bakbuk, the descendants of Hakupha, the descendants of Harher, the descendants of Bazluth, the descendants of Mehida, the descendants of Harsha, the descendants of Barkos, the descendants of Sisera, the descendants of Tama, the descendants of Neziah, the descendants of Hatipha, the descendants of Solomon's servants, the descendants of Sotai, the descendants of Sophereth, the descendants of Perida, the descendants of Jala, the descendants of Darkon, the descendants of Giddel, the descendants of Shephatiah, the descendants of Hattil, the descendants of Pachrath of Zebaim, the descendants of Ammon. All the Nethinim and the descendants of Solomon's servants were 392. And these were the ones who came up from Tel Melah, Tel Harsha, Cherub, Adon, and Immer, but they could not identify their father's house or their lineage, whether they were of Israel. The descendants of Deliah, the descendants of Tobiah, the descendants of Nekoda, 642. And of the priests, the descendants of Hobiah, the descendants of Kaz, the descendants of Barzillai, who took a wife from the daughters of Barzillai the Gileadite, and was called by their name. These sought their listing among those who were registered by genealogy, but it was not found, therefore they were excluded as defiled from the priesthood. And the governor said to them that they should not eat of the most holy things till a priest could consult with the Urim and Thummim. The total number of the assembly was 42,360. Besides their male and female servants, of whom there were 7,337, and they had 245 men and women singers. Their horses were 736, their mules 245, their camels 435, and their donkeys 6,720. And some of the heads of the fathers' houses gave to the work. The governor gave to the treasury 1,000 gold drachmas, 50 basins, and 530 priestly garments. Some of the heads of the fathers' houses gave to the treasury of the work 20,000 gold drachmas, and 2,200 silver minas. And that which the rest of the people gave was 20,000 gold drachmas, 2,000 silver minas, and 67 priestly garments. So the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers, some of the people, the Nethinim, and all Israel dwelt in their cities. When the 7th month came, the children of Israel were in their cities.